Hey guys, I'm back with another video, and in this video I'm going to talk about role-based authorization in Blazor. Okay, so this video is going to be about only authorization, not authentication. For authentication part, I already have couple of videos on my channel for implementing authentication in Blazor apps. So if you go to my channel in playlist, you're going to see this Blazor custom auth playlist where you will be seeing these videos. So first I have this how to implement custom authentication in Blazor WebAssembly, the standalone WebAssembly. Okay. Then I have this custom auth with Blazor in .NET without ASP.NET Core identity and with all kind of Blazor apps with or without interactivity. And I have this additional video as well for sign in with Google, that third party sign in provider, external login provider for Blazor. Okay. So before continuing this current video on authorization, I would recommend you guys to check these videos out so that you know how authentication works in Blazor. Because authorization comes later. First, you need to be authenticated to enter in the application. After that, authorization comes in place. Okay. So authentication is authentication allows you to enter in the application. Then authorization tells that what particular part of the application, pages of the application or functionality of the application the current authenticated user is allowed to see. Okay, so I am in here in Visual Studio 2022 and I have these two projects in this solution, Blazor role based authorization. First project is .NET Blazor Web App. This project is without any interactivity. Then I have the second project WASM, which is standalone Blazor WebAssembly application. Okay, so using combination of these two are totally different projects. I'm going to show you how to handle authorization in this Blazor Web App and then how to handle authorization in standalone WebAssembly apps. So using these two, a combination of these two, you'll be able to understand the authorization concept, role-based authorization, and how to implement it in all flavors of Blazor. Static SSR, Blazor, that interactive auto, interactive server, interactive WebAssembly, and standalone WebAssembly as well. All right. So I have some basic setup already in place. So we'll first see in Blazor Web App, then we'll move to the standalone WebAssembly. Right now in this Blazor Web App, what I have done, I have simply created a auth service. Okay. So in this, I have this logged in user record, which mimics the currently logged in user's information. So user ID, name, and role. I have this instance method on this, which converts this to list of claims. Then I have these constants. So right now, this application, this demo uses two roles. One is admin, one is guest. And then I have this auth type AP auth. This is arbitrary. You can have any name, whatever you want. And for roles also, you can extend this whatever roles your application needs. Okay. Then inside this auth service, I have these two methods: login as a guest and login as admin. So in this application, I have not implemented any real authentication. Okay, in real application, you will be having some UI, some Blazor component where you will have username and password. Then you will do those, pass those, then you will validate those username and password against some database or some third party provider, and then you will come here. Okay, then you'll get your logged in user, then you'll do this stuff. But in this application, I'm keeping it simple. I'm not implementing authentication. So this is all about authorization only. So I would assume that we already have that authentication in place, and now we are here. So here in login as guest, as the name suggests, this method logs in this user with guest role. Then I have the second method, login as admin. In this method allows this user to be logged in into the system using admin role. Okay, so here I'm just creating this claims identity with the claims from this user, providing this auth type, authentication type, generating claims principal from this claims identity, and then signing in with this claims principal into this HTTP context, because this is how authentication works in Blazor Web Apps. We directly sign in or sign out from this HTTP context. Okay, because in static SSR we have access to HTTP context. Alright, so these two are same. The only difference is in guest we are using guest role, in admin we are using admin role. Okay, so this thing I already have in place. Then in program.cs I have this basic authentication authorization setup. So first builder.services.add cascading authentication state. Okay, to allow Blazor application to use cascading authentication state throughout the components. Then we have this add scoped registration with authentication state provider with this server authentication state provider. So both of these classes are inbuilt in Blazor framework. So this authentication state provider, this is the class using which we enable the authentication authorization in our Blazor applications. This is an abstract class. We need to provide our own implementation to this. For static SSR, this server authentication state provider, this is already a built-in class which actually implements this authentication state provider. So we don't need to do anything explicit for this. Then I'm just registering our auth service as scoped, this auth service which we just saw, this login as guest and login as admin, just to mimic the sign-in things. Then this very basic form of authentication. So builder services add authentication, add cookie, then this add authorization. Builder.service.add authorization to enable the authorization. And after that, in the HTTP request pipeline registration, I'm having this app.use authentication to use authentication, then use authorization. And for this simple application, simple demo, I am disabling the anti-forgery token because I'm just having basic forms without anything. But in real application, you should not disable anti-forgery. You will not have this thing, and you will have app.use anti-forgery here so that you can prevent cross-site forgery attacks. All right. Now in components, in pages, what I had the basic setup with error, home, and weather pages. After that, I created these three pages. One is only admin. This page, only admin should be able to see it. Then I have this only guest page, which only guest user role should be able to see. Then I have this both. So this should be accessible by both. Okay. Then we have this home, error, and weather page, which are anonymous, allow anonymous kind of page, so anyone can access those without any authentication. All right, now if you go to home page, on home page, what I have done, I have simply created these two simple forms with method post on submit login as guest, and one is login as admin. I have these two buttons, one for login as guest, one for login as admin, because this is how we move to server from UI in Blazor static server side rendered application. Here in the code section, I am having HTTP context as cascading parameters. So for Blazor static SSR pages, we can have HTTP context as a cascading parameter. Then I'm having this login as guest and login as admin methods. Here, first, I'm simply login user as guest from our auth service method. I'm providing this HTTP context as a parameter. After that, I'm just refreshing the navigation manager so that we can see the changes here directly. Okay. Right now it will work, but we won't be able to see anything because we are not doing any authorization related things yet. All right. Now we'll do something which is related to authorization. So very basic, very first thing when we do is Blazor provides us a set of components which we can use to check the authorization state. So it gives us one authorize view. This component, which comes from Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components authorization. Okay, we'll do this. I am just going to remove it and I'll add it as a using on top. So we have this authorize view. Now inside this authorize view, we can have three different components. So one is authorizing. So this is getting rendered when Blazor is trying to check the current auth state, if user is authenticated or not. When Blazor framework is in progress or is in process of checking the authentication state, then this thing gets rendered. After that, we have not authorized. If authorizing is done, now Blazor knows that okay, Now I have calculated or computed. Now I found out that user is not authorized. And the third branch is authorized. If user checked it and user found the current logged in user to be logged in, authorized, then it will use this thing. Okay, so I'm simply going to have these three P tags in all this authorizing. Then in not authorized, I'll simply say P class, let's say text danger. Here I'll say not authorized. And in authorized, I'll simply say P class tag success, and here I'll say user is authorized. Save everything. And this authorizing first step, we will not be able to see it in this static SSR because everything runs on server only. So we will not be able to see this process. We'll be able to see either not authorized or authorized. Initially, it should show not authorized, but when we click on any of these buttons after this, it should be authorized. So we should see the second message. Let's try to run it. So application is here. We can see this user is authorized. We might already have some cookie created when I first run it. So if we go to cookie, let me quickly clear that cookie. Delete everything, and let me refresh it. All right, so now you see we are not authorized. We have these two buttons, login as guest and login as admin. Now if I say login as guest, you see user is authorized. Now again, if I refresh it, I should see this because we are using the basic cookies authentication, so we have cookie there. Login as admin, it is still same. If I again go to inspect, delete the cookie, application, cookies, and if I delete these cookies, if I refresh it, it should say not authorized. If I say login as admin, it is authorized. So this is the basic authorization. Now we know that user is authorized, but we don't have any information about who is the user who is authorized right now. Okay, whether he or she is guest or admin. So we should have some information about the current authenticated user which this authorized view is authorizing. So for this, inside this authorizing view, this authorized view, it gives us a special parameter, special variable that is named context, which has the user information, the current context information. Okay. So in authorized, let's have one h3 tag. Here I'm saying hi, and then I want to display the currently logged in user's name here. So here, as I mentioned, this at the rate context, this context variable, okay, which is of type authentication state. So we have this authentication state in this context variable. On this, we can access user, which is our claims principal. On this, we can access claims, identity, all these information. Okay, is in role. So this is the claims principal only. So we will have all the details from this. If you want to access some specific claims, we can simply say context user.claims and we can apply link QR all on this. But here I will simply say the username. So I'll say context user identity dot name. Now here it is complaining about it could be null, but here we know this is not going to be null. The reason is we are accessing this context inside this authorized section. So this context, this is available on authorize view. That means this context will be available in authorizing, not authorized, and authorized, all three of these. So in authorizing, we will not have identity. In not authorized, we will not have identity, or we will have identity, but it will not be authorized. But in authorized, we will have identity, which will be authorized. So here we are safe to skip that warning. We know this is not nullable. This is not null here. Okay, now let's try to rerun the application. Now we should be able to see the name of current logged in user. So here we can see hi Abhay Prince user is authorized. That means we are right now authorized as admin. If I do this guest, you see user is authorized, but now with hi Abhay guest. The current role is guest. If I say login as admin, so this is admin's name. This is from our app service. If you remember that auth service, here for guest the name is Abhay guest, and for admin the name is Abhay Prince. So this is showing us this information. All right. So using this authorize view component, we can get to know and we can render the HTML specific to the current logged in user's role and all. Okay. Now, what if I want to show role as well? So for that also we can simply access the role using this user.claims and role. Now what if I want to show some different message to user guest role and some different message to admin role? Okay, what I mean by that is, let's say when we are here, although we can access the role using claims, but I will have some additional thing here. Or maybe let's do this. You remember we have these three components: only admin, only guest, and both. So what we'll do, we'll go to the layout and nav menu.razor page. So now this authorized view we can access in on all the razor components, all the Blazor components, okay, within this application. So in this nav menu where we have our home and weather link, here I will add link to all these three pages. I'll simply copy, paste and paste. Okay, so first we'll have only admin, the URL only admin, then second one only guest, and the third one both, and the href both. Now what I want to do here, this both, first thing, all these three should be shown only when user is authorized. Okay, so let's quickly do this. Here we can say authorize view. Inside this we can go to authorize directly. We don't need authorizing and not authorized here. That was just to show you that we can use those things as well. So inside this authorized only, I'll have these three things: cut and paste. Now what it will do, it will show all these three menu items whenever user is authenticated. Okay, let's quickly see. So right now we can see only admin, guest, and both, all these, because user is authorized. We can change this and we should be able to see this. Now if I quickly go here and delete the cookie, delete, and if I refresh the application, now we are not seeing those things because a user is not authorized now, or we have those things in authorized section. Now if I say login as admin, I can see these things. Login as guest, I can still see these things. Now the as per these names, what should happen here? When I'm logged in as admin, then this only admin and both should be there, but only guest link, this should not be here. And if I log in as guest, in that case these two links, both and only guest, should be here, but only admin should not be here. Okay, now we need this role based HTML rendered. Okay, so let's quickly see how can we do this. First thing, let's fix the typo in this only guest. All right, now in this authorize view we have parameter roles. Here we can provide comma delimited list of roles that are allowed to display the content. So here we have this comma separated list of roles we can provide. Okay, so here we know what we can do. Let me do this. I want to show you something. Here I'll simply say admin, or if you want to use those constants only. So here what we can do, we can simply say like this, and we'll say constants dot roles dot admin, and we don't need this. Yeah, at the rate constant roles admin, and now all these should be visible to admin, but we don't need all these to visible to admin. We need both and admin to visible to admin. Okay, so what I can do, I can simply copy this authorized view, paste it one more time. This time I'll use guest, And from guest, I will remove the admin part. And from admin, I will remove the guest part. All right. So save everything. Now we have one authorized view where we have only admin and both, which should be tied to admin. Then I have another authorized view which is tied to guest. And here I have two menu admins, guest and both. Now if I run this, right now we are logged in as guest, so we can see guest and both. You see, if I go to admin, we can see admin and both. We can go to admin and both and home. If I say login as guest, now we can see guest and both. So that means this thing is working. This is how we can access roles. Now if you see, we have this both section, this both. We are copying this thing. Okay, this is duplicate. So we have one more approach. Maybe we can have one more authorized view. In there, we can just have one more authorized section, and we can move this thing, this both section. Let me copy and comment this here and add it in this third authorized view without providing any role. I'll comment this out in the first admin role as well. So in first authorized view, authorized, I have just admin and one link. Then I have second authorized view for guest role with only one link with only guest. Then one more authorized view with authorized without any role. That means for all the authenticated users, I have this both. So it will look and behave same. We are here. We are logged in as guest, so we can see guest and both. If we go to admin, we can see admin and both. So this thing is working as it was working before. Alright, now if we see, we have a lot of duplication. So you can do this. This is totally fine. There is no problem with it. There is no issue. Nothing fundamentally wrong. Everything works fine. But what I do with this authorized views, this third part, which we are doing this explicitly, we have one more way to do this. That is, what I will do here, I will simply, let's say, uncomment this, and I'm going to comment this everything out for your reference. This whole authorized view, all these authorized views, I have commented out everything. Okay. Now let me just copy one of these. And then the second approach which I am saying is, here we will have our authorized view. Inside this, we are going to have authorized. And inside authorized, we can have the both link directly. Now, before this both link, inside authorized, we can nest authorized view again. Okay, so pay attention. In authorized view, we have authorized, and in authorized, we can again have authorized view. Now, for this authorized view, we can directly say roles equals constants dot roles dot admin. Now this authorized view is for this admin role. And here I can directly do this in authorized view. We don't need to add authorized or not authorized authorizing thing here, because we already have a parent authorized view and we are using this authorized component here, this authorized render fragment child content. So this will already check if user is authenticated and authorized, then only it will come here. So we don't need to do authorized not authorized again inside this nested authorized view. That is already taken care of by its parents, authorized and authorized view. Okay, so admin, here we can say only admin, and then we can simply copy this authorized view, the nested one. After this, we can paste it one more time, and this time we'll say this should be for guest role, and the link should be only guest, and this text should be only guest. Now everything looks fine, but there is going to be one problem. Let's quickly run it. and we have some error. And error says the child content of component authorize view uses the same parameter name context. Okay, so here, if you remember on home page, to access the current user's identity, we have the special variable context, which is provided by authorize view. Now, in the second thing where we have this nested authorized view, so what happens? By default, it gives us that at that context variable that will be given by this authorized view. So we have context from this authorized view. Then inside this, we again have authorized view, and it is also having its own context. Now we will have duplicated context. So it will not be able to figure out which context we are using. So it throws that exception. Now, how can we fix this? For this, what we can do this in this upper the root level authorized view, we will not touch this. But for this authorized view, this internal authorized view, on this we have this context. We can provide our own name to this context. So in this case, this is admin. So here we can simply say let's say admin context. Same thing for the second authorized view. Here also we can provide this context parameter and we can say let's say guest context. And now we should be able to run this. Now the way we are using these things here, at the rate context user, all these things, the way we are accessing the authenticated users details, it will be a bit different with these. Now if we want to access this thing in this admin, okay, here we need to use this admin context. Then we'll have information of this authorized view. That means this current admin rules thing. Here, if we'll do at the rate context, then this context will be from this authorized view. But if we want to access something related to this authorized view, this admin rule, then we can use this at the rate admin context. On this also, we will have same information, user, identity, name, and all those things. Okay, let me do this. Let me have this here. So here I'll simply say a small tag. Inside this I'll use this admin context dot user dot identity dot name. And same thing here also, I know this is not going to be null. Same thing, I'll just copy and go to this guest, and here also I'll do this. But this time we'll use this guest context. Okay, so save everything and let's quickly start the application. We are here. Now we can see only admin Abhay prints. The UI is horrible, but at least we can see this, and we are logged in as admin. Now if we use login as guest, you see only guest, Abhay guest, current logged in user's name, which we can see here as well. And both these two are the links. Login as admin, we have this admin and this thing. So this is how we use role-based authorization to render different content on the UI. And this is how we can access the current logged in users information. Okay. Now if we see, now I'll show you one more thing. This is how to render the things, but this is not preventing the roles to be accessed directly entering in the URL. What I mean is, if I go to home page, right now I am logged in as admin. I can see it here, right? Let me go to this only admin page. Let me copy this URL. Go to home, log in as guest. Now we are logged in as guest. Here is the only guest link. If I go to the URL and if I try to access the admin page, here you see, I am able to access the only admin page. I should not be able to access this, but I am able to right now. I can't see that link, but if I directly hit that link in browser, I am able to navigate to it. So this should not happen. So this is another form of authorization. That thing we are going to see now. But before that, let me show you one more thing. If I clear the cookies, so moving it to not authorized state, then also I will be able to access all these pages, only admin, only guest, and both. Okay, I should not be able to see these things. The first step is to prevent direct access those URLs to non-authenticated users. So for this, if we go to both page, this is the first page where we want to restrict everything. So for this, we use authorize attribute, which is there for decades for all the ASP.NET Core authorization mechanism, authentication mechanism, basically that authorize attribute, which we had on our MVC API endpoints, all those things. The same attribute is here as well. So we can say at the rate attribute, and here we can say authorize, and we need this on all these three pages. Now, if you are familiar with the Blazor's underscore imports file, you can maybe have some folders, and you can have folder level underscore imports dot razor, and you can have that attribute there only in directly underscore imports dot razor, so that it will be applied to complete folder. But right now our pages folder, it has this weather, home, and error, these pages which are accessible to all public. These are public URLs. We don't need authenticated user to access these. So we are not going to add it directly to underscore imports. Then only guest as well, we'll add this at the rate attribute this authorize. Now if I refresh, start this application. Now let's see what happens. So we have application here. We are not authorized right now. Now if I try to access admin page, you see it says 404. That's because it is redirecting to login page, which we are not having right now. But when you'll actually implement the actual authentication, then you will have this thing. I'm right now working with authorization only, but using this, we know because this page is under authorize attribute, it needs to authorize the user first. Okay, so that's why it is going to log in. If I go back, same thing will happen for all those three pages, only guest, only admin, and both. So we are good with this thing. Now let's quickly try to log in as guest. Go to guest, we are good. Go to both, we are good. And if now we'll try to access the admin page, we are still able to access the admin page from guest user. Same thing if we go to home, we are saying let's log in as admin. And now if we try to go to guest page, we are able to go to guest page. That this is not what we want. So right now what we have done with these authorized attributes, we just prevented the unauthenticated access. Okay, that was just for authentication. Now we'll work role based authorization. So the basic authorized attribute is without any role, it will allow all the authenticated users. It will not check for role because we didn't tell it to check for roles. Okay, so now how can we restrict that? In this authorize attribute, we can provide some parameters. So here one parameter is roles, which is again gets or sets a comma delimited list of schemes from which user information is constructed. This is scheme, but for roles, it is actually for role. So comma separated roles here we can have. Here I'll simply say that same constants dot auth type dot. This is only guest, so it should be not auth type. Constants dot roles dot guest. I want it to be accessible only for guest role. Same thing. I'll go to the only admin, and here I'll say authorize roles constants roles dot admin. It should be accessible to admin only. Then for both we are good. We don't need to provide anything because we are allowing this page to be accessed by both. So if we didn't provide any role, it is by default allowed to all roles. Save everything and let's run it. Now we'll see if we are restricting the direct URL page access to those. Right now we are logged in as admin. Okay, we can go to this admin page. Now let's try to navigate to guest page. And you see it is going to account/access denied page. It is not redirecting to login page because it is already authenticated. We have user information. The role is not matching. For guest, we need guest role. But right now we are having user the admin role. That's why it is going to access denied. That means this user does not have access to access this page. We didn't create this page access denied. That's why it is showing 404. I don't know if you can see it. This is going to this page with this HTTP 404. So when you'll implement actual authentication, you will have this access denied page as well. Same thing will be there for if you go to home page, if we log in as guest, and we'll try to access the only admin page, it will again say access denied because we restricted this only admin page to be accessed by only the if the logged in user has admin role, but both will be accessible by both. All right, so I guess that's pretty much it for this Blazor Web App. Okay, so this is how we can implement authorization and role based authorization. So first is we have access to authorized resources using this authorize view where we have authorizing, authorized, not authorized and authorized thing. And we can access the current user's identity using context.user. This is the claims principle. Inside authorize, we can access this at the context in all these three. But because we will mostly be using this in authorize, so we will use it from here only. Then if we go to nav menu, here I showed you how to use the nested authorize view with roles. Okay, and we can have nested context and we can access the things using this nested context. So this is how we can render the different content on the basis of current logged in user's role. And then we have these attributes, authorized attribute, by which we can allow user to access some specific page, or we can restrict or deny access to the particular page if user is not logged in or not having the proper role which this page should have. All right, so that's all for Blazor Web App. Now we'll see this thing for Blazor standalone WebAssembly application. I'm going to close all tabs. I'll go to WebAssembly application and I'll show you what we have here. So here to enable the authentication, we need to do a bit of extra things which I already have added, and you will see all these things in this video, custom auth in Blazor WebAssembly standalone app. So I would recommend you guys to check that video out first to understand how authentication works in Blazor standalone WebAssembly. Then you'll be able to understand what we are doing in this thing. Okay, so first thing, we have added this package Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components authorization. This is required. After that, here also I have this auth state provider class where I have this logged in user and constants. This is same what we had in that Blazor web app project. Then in auth state provider, what we are doing, we have same that login as guest and login as admin methods. But this time a bit different. This auth state provider is a subclass of authentication state provider. Because for WebAssembly, we need to use authentication a bit different. In Blazor Web App, we already had that server authentication state provider, which was taken care by this framework itself. But for Blazor WebAssembly, we need to do things. So we are registering auth state provider as a subclass of authentication state provider, which is an abstract class which has this abstract method get authentication state async. So here what we are doing, we are having this task of authentication state where we are having this default empty authentication state. So authentication state with empty claims principal, empty claims identity. So just default auth state task. And from this get authentication state async, we are just returning that auth state task. So this is simple. And then we have this login as guest and login as admin methods. Here again, we are doing the same thing. We are creating this user with guest role and admin role. Then we are creating claims identity, claims principal. After that, in Blazor WebAssembly or interactive applications, we don't have HTTP context. So the login mechanism is a bit different. So all this is already explained in those authentication videos. Here we need to explicitly notify the authentication state change, which is a method from this authentication state provider, which takes care of all those things. Here we say auth state task, which we are just creating. We are providing this claims principle to this auth state task. We are creating a new authentication state with this claims principle, which has all the claims. And then we are notifying authentication state change. We are calling this method, which will actually re-render all the authorized views in our complete application. Okay. So here also I have these pages. Here I have all those pages, only admin, only guest and home. So only admin, I have same authorized attribute. Only guest, I have same authorized attribute. For both, I have already that authorized attribute without any role. For admin, I have role. For guest, I have role. These are hard coded. We can use the same thing here. So constants dot roles dot guest. Okay. Then on home page here we have these two buttons. This is auth state provider, right? Auth state provider. Save everything. And all right. So here we are not having those forms because these are in this is interactive application. So we can have direct button click here. So I have same UI, same two buttons, one for login as guest, one for login as admin. Okay. And from login as guest, I'm just calling auth state providers login as guest method. And from login as admin, I'm calling login auth state providers login as admin method, the same method. And this is doing all this stuff. Okay. So here also we can use that same authorize view. Okay. So authorize view, do this using, and the same authorize view. We can copy it from the main application home page. Let's copy this thing. Authorize view, authorizing, not authorized, and authorized. So the way of accessing it is same. The authorized view access, this will be same, but here we can see this authorizing. If the authorizing part takes some time, then we can have this thing rendered here because this is interactive application. We can see this process. But right now I'm going to just run this application. So let me select this page, this project, WASM project, and let's run it. And here is it loading. And we have not authorized login as guest, login as admin. Okay. Now if I say login as guest, you see Abhay guest, user is authorized. If I say login as admin, you can see hi Abhay Prince, user is authorized with this admin role. If you refresh it, of course, it will be in back to the previous state, not authorized, because right now in this WebAssembly app, we are not storing the current logged in users information everywhere. In the Blazor Web App, anywhere actually. In the Blazor Web App, we are storing it in cookies, but for this, we are not. But in real world, the use case depends upon you. So this WebAssembly application, this is actually a single page application. So everything is in memory unless you explicitly store it in browser storage. And it depends on your use case if you want to use cookies or session storage or local storage, whatever it is. But for now, we are good. So login as admin, login as guest, we are good. So this authorized view is working. Now we'll come to this left section. We'll have the same nav menu here. Okay, we can get the nav menu from the Blazor Web App and we can copy the all those things here as well, because the authorized view access roles and all these things are same for all versions, all flavors of Blazor. So if you go to nav menu, after all these three menu items, we are going to add this authorized view, save, and let's run it again. Now we should see the dynamic URL and all those things in left section, the nav menu. Initially, we just have these basic ones. If I say login as guest, you see only guest and both are here. If I say login as admin, you see we have only admin and both. If we go to only admin, we can see it. If we go to both, we can see both. If we go to home, login as guest, we can see this and this. Okay. Now let me show you one thing. This was the same. There is no difference, but now difference will come here. If we check only admin page, we have this role admin. Only guest, we have this roles guest. We are talking about WebAssembly application. Now if we go to nav menu, and for now, let me remove the roles for now. I'm just removing it. I'm just removing it. Or let's say do this. Let's allow both of these roles. So here, this is a comma separated list. So here we can add multiple roles. So what I'll do simply do this. This comma the admin role. Constants dot roles dot admin. So I'm rendering this page for both of these roles. What is happening here? Okay, let's do this. Let's quickly do this. So I'll say admin comma guest. I just want to show you something. So admin and guest. For admin, we will just show admin, but for this only guest, I'll show this UI for both admin and guest. If I save it and if I run it, it should be rendered, but as per our authorize attribute, let's say login as guest, we are good, but we'll say login as admin. Here we can see admin, guest, and both, all these three options. If I go to admin, everything works fine, we are good. If you go to guest, you see we are able to access this. This rendering part is a part of authorized view that we are sure that okay, we have added it. But this only guest, this thing, if we check this only guest page, here we are actually saying that this should be under authorize with this guest role only. So somehow these pages in Blazor Web Assembly applications are not considering this authorize attribute at all. But these are considering this authorized view. So what is the problem here? There is one step to allow authorize attribute for Blazor components, Blazor pages in Blazor WebAssembly application. We need to do one more thing. That is, if we go to app.razor page, here we have this router found, then we have this route view, which is simple router. We need to change this to authorize route view. This comes from Microsoft ASP.NET Core Components authorization. Now with this authorize route view, now it will be able to use and handle those authorize attributes. Now if I stop the application and run it again, okay, right now we are not logged in. Let's say login as guest. Guest is working, both is working. Go to home. Let's log in as admin. Admin is working, both is working. Now if I go to only guest, you see it is showing not authorized, because this only guest page, on this only guest page, we explicitly tell it to use authorize with guest role only. But current logged in user has admin role only, so it should not be able to access it, and that is what it is happening there. Okay, so this thing not authorized. Now that not authorized text, we can customize that as well. How? So in this authorize route view, right now this is self-closing. What we can do, we can make it a paired tag. Inside this, we can have not authorized, this thing. Here we can have any arbitrary set of HTML, or we can render any component. We can do anything here. So here we can maybe say, let's say h3 with the class text danger, and say you are not authorized to view this page. Okay. And if I save it and run the application, log in with admin, and if I go to only guest page, you see our own message. So we can customize this. We can render any component as well here. Let's say I have some access denied component. We can directly access that component here. Whatever it is, we can simply render anything here, any component. All right. So that's all for this video. I hope you guys must have learned something new, and do let me know in the comment if you guys were already aware about all these things, how authorization, how can we achieve role based authorization in Blazor apps. Okay. So for this source code, you can get it free from the description. I'm going to add a link of this source code. Alright, that's all for this video. Please like this video, share this video, subscribe my channel. I'll be back soon with some other cool video. Till then, bye bye. Happy coding.